Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Wednesday, August 14th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card we are starting our day off with today is the Star card in its reversal. A lot of work that we're seeing that is occurring right now in the space or place of vulnerability. A lot of that energetic unpacking that's happening right now. This is having a different impact on masculine and feminine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Why are we seeing this right now? Because we're recognizing and identifying a lot of this work that we've been discussing has to do with navigating states and spaces of vulnerability. A lot of this Leo season right now is allowing a lot of that emotionality to unfold, but being able to navigate forward and feeling a bit of that openness. It may be recalling spaces and places in the past that you didn't feel like you were moving with the intentionality of one's own heart center. This is having a different impact on masculine and feminine energy. For masculine energy, this could be a lot of that energetic recall of spaces in the past wherein, again, you are navigating circumstances, not having that that centering of the emotionality opening up towards circumstances or situations. This could even be a lot of that masculine energy, as we said, redefining what strength means in this way. And for a lot of that masculine energy, that ability of desiring or feeling that sense of building into some kind of a strength experience that told you or taught you that a sign of weakness was appearing vulnerable towards feminine. This is a lot of the masculine energy that is recognizing and redefining that in the modality of recognizing that when you're able to come towards feminine in a state or space of being emotionally vulnerable, and this is the important thing, not emotionally vulnerable in the state of just feeling the expression of one's emotionality, having that moment of subjecting the feminine to the emotions, but the ability to articulate through them, the ability to articulate how one is emotionally feeling. This is the masculine energy that may be like redistributing in their own headspace what they recognized in a way that they weren't necessarily able to clarify. Because again, the feminine energy feels safe. They feel energetically secure with masculine energy that can articulate through emotions rather than subjecting the feminine to the emotions. So for a lot of the masculine energy coming through and having a bit of that recognition point of a breakthrough, this is a lot of the masculine energy and the modality of experiencing that, potentially looking back on those past experiences wherein that may not necessarily have occurred, right? Because that could be a bit of a clarifying moment that is happening in those spaces and places. For feminine energy, a bit of this is coming through right now. And again, that moment in terms of how you navigate or how you express one's own emotionality. We saw even now a lot of that energy of the feminine is working on building into a space of saying, how can I be energetically resilient while also navigating and keeping one's own emotional center open? This is a lot of the feminine energy that's observing and saying the ability to, again, articulate upon the emotions as opposed to subjecting another towards them. This is a lot of the feminine energy that's doing that work in terms of setting those healthy energetic boundaries. It's a little bit more difficult for the feminine today because especially in those modalities of the feminine, feeling some of that, we saw this occurring over the last few days. There's a lot of situations and circumstances right now that may feel like they're pushing on or adding pressure to one's own ego, right? But what happens in that moment where we recognize or we feel that sense of an egoic wound? We recognize that the ego is there to effectively energetically protect us. It's when we become too protective of the thing, and I need to stress this, when we become too protective of the thing that's supposed to protect us, well, then the ego stops being sufficient. It stops being useful because that's that moment that we're protecting the thing that's supposed to protect us. So we see even now that a lot of that energy is doing a lot of that unpacking and relationality to recognizing and understanding that. And that's hard work, right? Because that requires that space of not taking something energetically personally. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union, a lot of this work is coming into that state or space of working through healthy conflict areas, especially and particularly if these were modalities or experiences wherein in the past that conflict point was something that felt like it was energetically feared, that anxiety towards conflict, re-navigating conflict in a way that feels exciting, it feels productive. Because when that happens, when you build into an experience with a counterpart that you feel like you can have a healthy, productive conflict with, that's that moment that potentially allows the conflict to create a breakthrough point. That's the moment that feels like the conflict point. It doesn't create that separation. It creates that flourishing of new ideas, of new information, of new experiences. So we see even now that for a lot of that energy, navigating that state or space, we're either seeing that this is the energy that's healing from experiences in the past that may have felt like you were feeling anxiety towards energetic conflict, or this is energy that if that something about that conflict did create a little bit of that energetic separation, that ability of recognizing and identifying, taking accountability for one's own self. Same message as came from the high frequency, which is again that modality of recognizing and identifying that when we move too much from the sense space or the state of the ego, when we become too protective of the energetic ego, we almost inevitably end up hurting the internal self. Because again, the ego is not there to be energetically protected. It's there to energetically protect. And we see even now a lot of that energy coming into divine union, working through those modalities. If these were experiences where something about the conflict point brought that ego to bear in a way that felt like it wasn't necessarily protecting you, but moving you further away from being able to build an energetic connection, a lot of that is coming through right now, and being able to have a bit of that openness. It is having a different impact on masculine and feminine energy. For masculine energy, this may be unpacking those modalities or experiences where you may be recognizing that you built some sense of feeling anxiety in terms of being vulnerable towards feminine. But again, as we said, for energy deep within the divine union frequency right now, that recognition point that feminine energy does not fear masculine that is emotionally vulnerable. They are coming to a point of anxiety around masculine energy wherein the articulation of the emotion is replaced with the reaction to the emotion. So we see even now that a lot of that energy is doing that work and recognizing and identifying what that feels like. For feminine energy, if these were modalities of one becoming too energetically defensive because of those experiences in the past, wherein again, that reactivity of the masculine may have created that energetic defensiveness, there's a lot of that articulation that we're seeing right now in the relationality of identifying, again, the difference between an excuse and a reason. What is an excuse? An excuse is something that is stated to perpetuate a behavior. A reason is something that is articulated upon in order to facilitate a change upon a behavior. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is in separation, a lot of this emotionality right now that we're seeing may have to do with some of these circumstances or situations that feel like they're creating some sense of obstacle. Feminine energy, having these modalities right now, I'm either seeing that this is energy of feminine in separation where masculine is bringing forth solutions to energetic problems. But the thing that we're seeing that for a lot of the feminine energy in that state of emotional compassion is not wanting the masculine to feel like they have to facilitate too much change on account of the feminine, right? While for masculine energy right now, this is that modality that you may be trying to say to feminine, I'm not doing this for you. I'm not doing this for you. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for us. I'm doing this for me. Because a lot of that work that we're seeing here is, again, a lot of that energy and separation that is navigating through that space or place of energetic consideration. So a lot of that, this is almost like a little bit of that over compassion in Leo season that may be creating a little bit of that energetic hurdle, because I see a lot of the feminine energy coming into that modality of trying to accept something that masculine's trying to bring forth, and masculine coming into that space or place of saying, like, again, it's not too much for you to ask because I'm the one that's asking you to receive it. While for masculine and feminine energy, that we're also seeing here that for some of that energy, if this was healthy separation, if there was that acknowledgement point in relationality to something that felt like it was just too much of a difficulty, too much of an energetic obstacle to navigate, there's a little bit of this heart healing that's occurring right now. Because we see even now, like, that's not that energy that's like really expansive or excited to move forward to a certain extent. It's a lot of energy that's kind of going into contemplation in relationality to what they've just experienced, that's giving context to anything that they experienced in the past. Second card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here our 9 of Cups in its upright. So again, this is cathartic. This is contemplative. For a lot of the energy right now in separation, I'm either seeing the modality of, again, feminine energy healing from experiences or spaces wherein they didn't feel like they were getting the energy of the masculine coming towards them in the way that they would ideally desire or aspire. This is why when feminine energy receives this, even in separation, it can feel so emotionally triggering. Because in the moment of energetically receiving something in the way that you anticipated or the way that you always desired, it kind of reminds you of all those experiences in the past wherein you didn't, right? It reorients, it recalibrates. So we see even now that there's a lot of that energy of feminine and separation that's going into serious contemplation around that. But a lot of that is almost, again, that feeling, navigating forward, recognizing one's own worth. And in those modalities that one feels like that sense of recognizing one's own worth and one's own value, it often harkens back to those spaces or places wherein you are effectively feeling like you could energetically accept less. So we see even now that this is a lot of emotional unpacking right now. And this is either coming into the modality of the feminine coming forward towards masculine, it's masculine coming towards feminine in such a way, of feminine trying to come into a space of believability. Because I feel like some of the energy of feminine and separation right now is going through some of this work in terms of recognizing and feeling some kind of energetic abundance that's coming towards them and feeling kind of worthy of it, right? Or this is the energy of the feminine that's coming into that modality of recovery from experiences of the past, because something about the experience that they just had, even if it isn't leading to divine union, is giving them a new set of optics in terms of what is effectively energetically possible. While for masculine energy right now in separation, this is a lot of breakthrough energy in relationality to path work. This is a lot of energy that is observable right now in relationality to what is effectively energetically possible. And the thing about this that's a little bit harder for the masculine energy in separation, and we were recognizing this, is there's a lot of this masculine energy that we're just discovering that's it feels like masculine energy navigates in such a way that's there's no problem that can't have a solution, right? There's no problem that can't have an energetic solution in some way, shape, or form. The difficulty or the hurdle that may be navigated right now for some of the masculine energy is the masculine energy doing everything they can to try to facilitate that energetic connection to a certain extent. But again, moving forward in such a way of it amplifying the ability of the feminine to feel that same sense of comfortability. And I see even here that there may be something that is a little bit energetically difficult for some masculine energy right now in separation, specifically and particularly, because the masculine coming into that modality of satisfaction, there is this moment, I see a lot of masculine offering something to feminine, and it's articulated upon or built upon the choice of the feminine in relationality to whether that feels like that point of comfortability or not, right? So a lot of this is, again, masculine maybe navigating that heart space of a feminine and recognizing that this is not the fact that I see some situations of masculine trying to navigate towards feminine, but feminine is being very protective of their heart space. For good reason, for good energetic reason. We see that a lot of feminine energy is doing that work of not feeling like they want to lead with their heart space, but almost being mindful and careful about where they put their heart space right now. So we see even now that for a lot of that energy doing that work or facilitating through those experiences, this could be a lot of that masculine energy trying to come into that moment of, again, articulating to feminine what is energetically possible. And almost looking into that towards feminine and saying, are you able to find me here in that point of trust? Is this something that we can move forward on? What's beautiful about this is for some of the energy, even if there's those modalities of the feminine saying, I'm not energetically ready, there's a little bit of that patience that's being brought forth, because these are energies that even if they're coming into separation, there's the observation point of the fact that the circumstances are such that are leading to or causing some of these energetic separations. And when we move forward in a point of not taking it personally, when we come into a space of separation, there's almost that ability of recognizing that time will tell. There's still something there that might be energetically possible where circumstances to change. So we see even now that a lot of the masculine energy is potentially healing from experiences in the past wherein it felt like nothing they could do was ever energetically enough for the feminine, because we're almost seeing here that this is masculine encountering feminine. That's almost saying like, I'm not asking you to do those things for me. This is a masculine being like, that's why I want to do them, right? Well, for masculine and feminine energy right now, coming into divine union, a lot of this energy that we're seeing coming into divine union right now has to do with the resolution in terms of what conflict looks like. And I got to say, if these are circumstances or situations wherein we see that the past, the conflict space was an area to be energetically avoided, potentially even energy that was like afraid of conflict. This is a lot of energy that's learning to embrace healthy conflict, because it's that moment of, again, observing that when you're with counterpart energy that works on, again, looking at like the difference between a conflict and an argument. What is the difference between a conflict and an argument? An argument is the energy, like the energy wanting to move in two very different ways and trying to pull each other to their side, right? The conflict is coming through in that state or space of, again, feeling the same, having the same endpoint, right? I'm going to correct this. The argument is having the same endpoint, having different ways of going about it. And so we see even now that some of the energy right now that is coming through, some of that healthy conflict energy, is recognizing and feeling the sense of what it feels like when you're navigating in the same direction. You just have different ways of going about it. So we see even now that for a lot of that energy, the release and relief of either, again, recognizing one of two different modalities, either the modality of having gone through a conflict point and immediately felt like that deepening of the energetic connection, because you weren't subjecting the other to the emotions, but rather articulating through them. Whereas we see even now that for some of that energy, if these were modalities wherein, again, you may have felt like you became too triggered, you became too emotionally protective. Masculine, you may have felt like you lashed out or subjected someone to your emotions. Feminine, becoming energetically protective or becoming overly defensive at a time of masculine, becoming vulnerable. These are the energies that are taking those energetic lessons. They're not just letting something slide and setting that expectation at a low point. This is the energy that's addressing how the conflict was navigated in order to facilitate healthier responses going forward. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is deep within the divine union frequency. A lot of this work that we're seeing that is occurring right now for energy deep within the divine union frequency, it has to do with recognizing and identifying and, again, working through a lot of the wounds of the egoic self and not taking something energetically personally. A lot of these messages that we're seeing right now are coming through in the state or space of identifying and recognizing that the ego, you should not worry about your ego getting energetically wounded, because your ego is there to protect the internal self. What happens in those modalities where the internal self starts getting all precious about the egoic self? That's everything reversed. It's completely reversed. The ego is supposed to be there to act as a blocker to energetically protect the internal self. So when we have those moments that we feel those egoic wounds and we take them too personally, like that's where we can often get moved out of our own path work, because that's when that modality comes where we're worried more about the perception of others and how they perceive us as opposed to how we see ourselves. So we see even now that a lot of that path work that's occurring right now within this Leo retrograde cycle has to do with the recognition point between the egoic nature, like the true nature, and the egoic self, and not taking something energetically personally, navigating forward from a state of intentionality and patience and determination. That's what's allowing for a lot of those breakthroughs to occur. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here our High Priestess in its reversal. Now, this is having a different impact on masculine and feminine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. For a lot of the feminine energy right now, working through this is a lot of those moments of doubting the self, doubting one's own abilities, doubting one's own vulnerability points. There's a lot of this energy that I'm just seeing right now. It can feel very triggering, right? Because a lot of that energy that's feeling triggering, something about this right now is like, this is building into a lot of the pathwork of the feminine, learning to trust themselves, learning to build into that space or place of moving forward with that sense of energetic wholeness, building into that state or that modality of recognizing and identifying. And again, if these are modalities wherein, again, the feminine puts too much of that expectation on situations and certain scenarios outside the self, a lot of that work that they're working on with the counterpart of the masculine is recognizing and identifying to a certain degree that if the feminine has that modality of saying that one doesn't feel like they're meeting expectations, that idea of, again, what expectations are you feeling like you're not meeting? Are those the expectations within the self, or those the expectations that you're perceiving and viewing the things outside of the self and utilizing them as a catalyst or comparison point in relationality to your own journey? So for a lot of the energy of the feminine right now, deep within divine union, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, not allowing yourself to come into that modality of comparison, not comparing your own energetic journey to those around you, feeling the satisfaction in terms of how much you've accomplished. That's a lot of that work that we build upon or talk about in relationality to gratitude, because that moment of moving towards gratitude and fulfillment is one that, again, you don't build gratitude and fulfillment by looking around the self and going, oh, good, I'm doing better than everyone else around me. How lovely. No, we don't do that. That doesn't do anything. But again, having that moment of satisfaction and support and recognizing the fruits of one's own efforts, feeling that satisfaction point, having patience in that modality. Like that's where we see even now that is a lot of the work that's occurring for feminine deep within the divine union frequency. And it's difficult. It's difficult because a lot of the feminine energy is healing from experiences wherein, again, a lot of these old wounds may have put them in that modality of always comparing themselves to those around them. So we see even now, like this is a lot of work of healing that by recognizing and coming into a space of gratitude and joy for one's own accomplishments. I want any of the feminine energy doing this today to be gratitude. I just want you gratitude journaling. Well, for masculine energy right now, this could be helping a lot of the feminine energy in this modality right now. Because if this is the masculine that's seeing a feminine that's coming into that modality of feeling the frustration within their own self and their own accomplishments, seeing feminine in that modality, this could be masculine almost acting as a bit of a clear mirror to feminine, articulating and showing the feminine and saying, I can see you more clearly than you can see yourself. Because again, what's the difficulty in working in the state or space of energetic compassion? It feels like you're never doing enough. I know perfection is something that creates that space in you that it never feels like it's enough. But to be able to navigate and mitigate that, we see to a certain extent that this is the masculine that's helping the feminine in this way. Because this is the masculine almost articulating to feminine and saying, you know that feeling never goes away, right? You know you're never going to hit that benchmark and go, oh good, I'm satisfied. I've done everything that I want to do. Like this is the energy of the masculine saying to feminine, that's the quality and characteristic of the nature of moving forward in that way. You question yourself. If you're doing it well, you question yourself every step of the way. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now, a lot of this unpacking that I'm seeing right now, especially in relationality to any conflicts that may have occurred over the last few days, this is now opening up a little bit of that like past experience. This could be a lot of the energy that's either feeling the release and relief of having gone through a conflict energy, feeling the profound satisfaction in relationality to how something was navigated that immediately harkens back to experiences in the past wherein masculine may have felt that anxiety about being emotionally vulnerable. While for feminine, this could be a lot of that work of, again, recognizing and identifying that modality of being too energetically defensive in the past. This is a little bit of that unpacking of the past experiences here. Because this is either, again, the energy that is moving towards more productive conflict spaces by articulating, and I'm going to stress this again, the reasons that one effectively brought something that felt like it was too energetically volatile into a space or place that it wasn't needed. So this could be a lot of the unpacking of the trauma, expressing the reason, not the excuse, right? Because the excuse says this is something that needs to be held for this reason. It's not changing. The reason is something that is articulated by means and by which to find a healthy resolution to a circumstance or situation. So we're seeing that even here, that a lot of that energy navigating the conflict space, even introspecting upon their own volatility or their own activation, and maybe even talking about the experiences in the past that those were necessary in order to thrive, in order to survive. Like this is a lot of that energy that is coming into that space or place of recognizing the safety and security of the energetic connections that they're building into by means of recognizing that it doesn't require you to be perfect. It just requires you to be mindful. It requires you to be introspective. It requires you to be accountable. And for continuing right now, for the energy in separation, a lot of this work in separation right now, there's a lot of energetic unpacking that's potentially occurring right now. And for masculine, it's a little bit harder for feminine today. I'm just going to tell you, it's a bit harder for the feminine, because for the feminine energy right now in separation, this is a lot of the feminine energy that's having, I want to say, this is the feminine energy. There's some feminine energy that's having argumentation between their intuition and their headspace. I'm just seeing it right now. There's some kind of argumentation between their intuition and their headspace. So even now, I feel like there's something about this where the feminine's having something being brought forth towards from masculine. And this is a lot of that energetic compassion that's coming forth. Because if this is feminine energy in separation, wherein masculine is bringing forth some kind of energetic solution. Again, I want to say there's a lot of masculine energy that's trying to like build into facilitating that energetic connection with feminine. For a lot of that feminine in separation, this is that feminine that's like, I want to say, it's almost the feminine saying, I don't want you to do something for my benefit. And this could be a lot of the masculine right now in separation, like going, I'm not doing this for your benefit. I'm doing this for our benefit. I'm doing this because this is what I desire and aspire. So this is a lot of the feminine energy that may be going through a little bit of that, like, a little bit of that anxiety point if there's a modality here where, again, feminine energy is still holding on to trauma, and that trauma makes it hard to be able to accept something from a point of joy. Or this is a lot of the feminine energy that is looking at a circumstance or situation, and they're feeling the breakthrough in having something that was coming towards them in a very tangible, authentic way that is reorienting a lot of those experiences on the past, wherein again they were questioning themselves or wondering why they weren't able to build a healthy connection with masculine in the first place. For a lot of the masculine energy in separation right now, this is really difficult. Because I'm just seeing that there's a lot of this masculine energy in separation right now that is having, they're going through difficulties and hurdles in terms of the feminine being able to come into a space or place of trust. I feel like there's a lot of this energy right now in separation that's trying to come towards feminine in a way that is authentic. But so much of this energy of the feminine is holding on to so much of those wounds from the past, a lot of those anxiety points. That it's almost like I see a lot of masculine energy saying, like, I know that you're not in a state or space to trust, and I'm not asking you to build that trust towards me, but it needs to start somewhere, right? So we see even now, like, there's a little bit of that energy of the masculine trying to build a bridge to the feminine, saying, like, you know, I recognize that you might not have reason to, but I'm hoping that you'll allow me the opportunity to be able to show you that that's something that we can build together. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here our 3 of Wands, and it's upright. And I like this because what we're seeing for a lot of the energy in separation right now is the plan. The plan is the promise. The plan is the promise. The plan is the promise. You know, I gotta say that for a lot of the energy in this modality right now, recognizing, identifying, building those plans, having that ability to articulate what those changes are. There's a lot of that energy right now that is effectively facilitating and recognizing what feels like it's coming from a place or space of authenticity. Like what feels like it is, and I told you it was all of this productivity, right? Because a lot of this energy, I gotta say right now, this is why we see so much of this energy of the feminine that's holding their heart space in that state or space of care, right? Because this is the energy of the feminine that doesn't want to get ahead of themselves in relationality to some kind of plan. Being able to see that right now, for a lot of that feminine energy, there could be a lot of energy right now of feminine that is building forth with masculine and they're feeling a little bit of that energetic excitement. There's a little bit of that wait and see to a certain extent. But what we're identifying here is what's important. And this, in this way, I actually think it's valuable for the feminine to be in this space and separation. This is the feminine energy that's like reserving their judgment to a certain extent. This is the feminine that's taking a little bit of a wait and see approach, right? This is a feminine energy that's like building into that state of conscientiousness and care for a certain extent, but for good reason, right? This is the implementation of a lot of the path work of the feminine. Same work that we see is occurring deep within the divine union frequency, which is, again, this isn't the feminine energy going like, here's my heart. This is the feminine energy that is maintaining or holding to a certain extent that heart space carefully. This is the feminine energy extending that compassion they give to others, to themselves. While for masculine, what we're effectively seeing right now is for a lot of that masculine energy that is in separation. This is a lot of this energy that's building forth in connections with feminine right now that are either being like laying out that plan and articulating and saying, I know you're feeling trepidatious, but that's my responsibility to show you that this is something that you can trust, that this is something that is occurring. So we see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy, experiencing and encountering feminine in that way, there's a lot of that compassion that's coming forward. There's a lot of that sense or that space of saying to the feminine, I'm not just going to tell you that this is how we're going to facilitate doing that. I'm showing you that I'm putting that plan into action. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, this is all about the ability to navigate conflict effectively. So if this is energy that last week they experienced anything in relationality to navigating circumstances or experiences wherein there was a feeling of the feminine coming into those experiences, I want to say, like having those modalities either of experiencing what could be articulated as first conflicts, but seeing how bad it can be that wasn't bad at all. Like having that modality of having an energetic conflict, but then immediately feeling the easement point, immediately feeling the productivity, immediately feeling the flourishing of understanding and practicality that can potentially comes through conflict. This is energy that's feeling the release and relief of experiences in the past where it felt like there was that anxiety or fear of conflict. So there could be a lot of energy that is articulating upon some of that trauma from the past, an appreciation for the building of into experiences wherein that isn't even like, it isn't even on the menu, right? Or if this is energy that feels like they slipped, feels like they fell out of their own intentionality because they carried forth some kind of trauma into the past in a state or space where it should not be. This is the energy that is, again, reaffirming and reasserting the healthy boundaries in relationality to what can be expected going forward to prevent those modalities. Because as we said, what happens when masculine energy is overly emotional in such a way that you don't articulate upon your emotions, but you subject another to them. When the masculine energy subjects the feminine to over-emotionality, the feminine energy feels like they see the masculine that is not in control of themselves. And when feminine energy sees masculine energy that is not in control of themselves, feminine energy builds an energetic wall to protect themselves because they feel like they're experiencing masculine in a state or space where they cannot control themselves. So we see even now that this is the energy that may be articulating through those modalities or through those experiences to try to find healthier ways of communicating that will allow those experiences of conflict to build a bridge as opposed to becoming an emotional armory, right? We don't want the emotions to become weapons. We want them to become tools. Masculine and feminine energy right now, deep within divine union. A lot of this work that we're seeing that is occurring right now, deep within the divine union frequency, has to do with doubting, like doubts of the self, doubts of one's own abilities. A lot heavier for feminine right now, I'm going to say. Masculine was experiencing this earlier this week with a lot of that over-emotionality. Feminine, again, this is the energy, this Leo retrograde has feminine just getting very practical. Just really like getting extremely practical. But in that modality or in that space where that practicality feels like it's not immediately bringing forth the results that the feminine aspires or desires, that can sometimes create the feminine doubting themselves, doubting their intentionality, doubting their efforts. Masculine may be recognizing this in feminine too. But again, bearing in mind that masculine was in that modality a few days ago where there was a lot of that emotionality, and feminine was creating a lot of that energetic supportive system for them. We see now that this is masculine's turn to come into a space or place of being supportive to the feminine, because this is the masculine that's articulating to the feminine and helping the feminine recognize and see via the acting as a clear mirror. Hey, I see how much you're doing. I see how much you're implementing. I see the work. I see the parts of yourself that you do not see. And this is a lot of the masculine within the divine union frequency almost saying to feminine, if you doubt yourself, it's because you hold yourself to a high standard. If you doubt yourself, it's because you're comparing yourself too much to the energy around you. So we see even now that a lot of that is helping the feminine, the masculine's helping the feminine maintain energetic focus as they proceed forward. And because this is the same energetic focus that the feminine was giving the masculine just a few days ago in relationality to the masculine, feeling an emotional overwhelm, and the feminine saying to masculine, it's safe for you to feel that way. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fifth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here, Queen. There's so much of this feminine energy today. This is a lot of the feminine energy coming into that modality of unpacking. But look at this. I like to see cards like this moving in this progression. Why? Because this is the feminine energy that is navigating those spaces and places of doubting themselves or doubting their own intentionality. Like there's a lot of this energy of the feminine that we're seeing right now that is moving in such a way of almost saying to others, don't misunderstand me. I hope my intentions are clear. I hope you recognize the intentionality through which I'm trying to bring something forth here. Because this is that modality that we're seeing, that a lot of that feminine comes into that experience or that expression of doubting, like doubting their own self, doubting their own pathwork. But what occurs in those modalities, we're again working with the energetic counterpart that again acts as a clear mirror, saying to feminine, hey, I recognize the work that you do. I see how much you work. And if you doubt yourself or you doubt your abilities, that's because you're angling for perfection. And the problem with perfection is you can't catch it. You can't catch perfection. You never can catch perfection. It's always going to be a little bit further ahead of you. And you have to recognize and identify the nature of that is one, that you always strive for it, but you never expect it because you're never going to be able to maintain it. It's never something that you're going to be able to receive in whatever context you find yourself in. So we see even now that for some of that feminine, orienting in that way, getting that sense of energetic support, potentially via the counterpart, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. It's grounding for the feminine. It helps the feminine maintain a state or space of practicality through those circumstances and experiences. Now for masculine and for masculine energy right now, a lot of this work that we see that may be navigated right now may have to do with unpacking experiences from the past wherein the feminine wasn't in that point of stability. There could be a lot of this work that we're effectively seeing to a certain extent with masculine, going through a lot. I see a lot of this internal journeying that's occurring within the masculine self right now, deep within divine union. Having to recognize and identify that there's something about the ability to communicate. There's something about the masculine being able to open up the heart space that the masculine is recognizing is allowing that sense of safety and security towards feminine right now. And a lot of this work right now, I want to say, this is a lot of the energy of the masculine feeling the appreciation and care via the feminine. Because again, if this is masculine energy that feels like that is the feminine that offered that ability of the masculine to feel emotionally safe, this is the masculine energy that again almost sees the feminine and wishes that the feminine saw themselves in the same way that the masculine sees them. Because this is the masculine that's almost seeing the feminine being someone who's very energetically grounded, but often doubts themselves in the process. So we see even now that that's a lot of that energy of masculine that's coming into that state or space of helping the feminine recognize their own power, recognizing their own like staying very grounded within the self, and the feminine doing so as well for the masculine by providing that sense of security and safety to be emotionally open. While for masculine and feminine energy right now coming into divine union, a lot of this work that we're seeing right now has to do with healthy communication and recognition, particularly over spaces or states in the last few days that may have led to some kind of energetic conflict. Because we see even now there's a lot of this articulation that may be being had about the fact that when the masculine comes towards feminine and they are overly emotional, the feminine becomes energetically defensive because the feminine looks towards the masculine that's overly emotional. And I need to stress this, overly emotional does not mean a masculine that feels emotions. Feminine loves seeing masculine feeling emotions. Feminine wants to see masculine being an ability to express what they're feeling, articulate what they're feeling, having the bravery to articulate what they're feeling instead of becoming reactive to how they're feeling. Because when the feminine experiences that on the part of the masculine is saying to the feminine, not only can I navigate my emotions, but I can do it in a way that feels like it's safe for you to be in the presence of me as I experience them. While for feminine, that ability of not becoming too defensive, potentially recognizing spaces or states in the past where you may see the masculine becoming emotional and you become very defensive because of those experiences in the past that were triggering, because when you saw a masculine becoming emotional, you're like, oh no. Like a lot of that work of unpacking here, it's allowing for a lot of breakthroughs in relationality to communication that's helping set the energetic standards going forward by way of reason, by way of understanding the context through which those triggers or those mechanisms were first formed. Masculine and feminine energy right now in separation. A lot of this energy in separation right now. Doing this work in terms of what feels like it is practical, what feels like it is possible. And the only thing, one of the big things I'm seeing that is becoming a little bit of a blocker right now for a lot of the energy of the feminine and masculine in separation is there's a lot of feminine energy that may be looking right now for that pathwork of productivity. If there were obstructions here, if there were tangible obstacles that were facilitating a difficulty in an energetic connection, this is the feminine energy that's holding their heart space at a bit of a distance here, because this is the feminine energy that is trying to look at what is practical, trying to look at what is possible, as opposed to allowing that heart space to kind of guide them. Because this is the feminine that's like, again, hoping for the best, but being very conscientious as to what feels like it is practical and possible and functional. And a lot of that may be the articulation point in terms of the long-term manifestation goals. So there could be a lot of energy right now that is in separation, that is having a lot of conversations in relationality to what one aspires and desires in the long term prior to building an emotional connection here. For masculine and feminine, this is productive territory, because we see even now that if this is masculine energy that is articulating in this way, we see that there's a lot of energy that's coming into like healthy, like either healthy new connections or productive possible outcomes. Because for both of these energies right now, this is the energy that's like saying like the passion is good, but the plan is better. Identifying and seeing the consistency, identifying the plan, understanding what that's going to be. There could also be a lot of conversations that have to do right now in relationality to communication. Because I see even now that there may be a lot of this energy of feminine and separation, articulating the need and viability and vitality of what feels like consistent, productive communication in order to facilitate and recognize what feels like it is energetically possible going forward. Because I see even now there may be a little bit, I have to say this, there may be a little bit of this energy in separation where towards masculine, not hearing, like not I can see some experiences where masculine might not be hearing from feminine and assuming things are good. But feminine almost being like, we need to have a clarification point in relationality to communication. Because this is the feminine energy that says I'm seeking consistent communication in the context of building forward into an energetic connection. Communication is key right now. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our star card and its reversal in combination with our 9 of cups and its upright. I'm not surprised to see communication being key during a Leo retrograde and Mercury retrograde in Leo. Can I please have one card to clarify? Clarification. Speaking of communication, these are all the communication cards that are out. we got our 3 of Wands, we got our 2 of Wands, we got our 9 of Cups. So there's a lot, I have to say, I'm either seeing here Okay, I'm seeing a couple different modalities that are potentially happening right now in separation. So if there's something here, I feel like there may be some circumstances that are happening right now in separation that are requiring some kind of like conversation as it relates to healthy communication. Because I see even now, especially if there's energy here that's like working through path work or building into a plan, particularly plans that are like at a distance or something that like feels like it's like long term. This is the energy of the feminine that needs healthy communication every step of the way. This is a lot of the energy of the feminine that is almost saying to masculine in separation, it should not be my responsibility to have to facilitate the energetic communication. I can just see this. I can see a lot of feminine in separation articulating upon this right now. And so I see even now that there's a lot of that feminine energy that's like, I want to say, building into that space of potentially articulating if there are modalities here where there were some kind of plans that were being laid in terms of long-term plans. If there isn't communication that feels like it's energetically consistent, this could be a lot of the feminine energy basically saying to the masculine in some way, shape, or form in separation, it should not be my responsibility to have to facilitate the communication. It needs to be energetically reciprocal, because there's something about this, especially if these are long-term plans to a certain extent, that are like requiring a lot of healthy communication throughout, where we see even now that for some of the masculine energy right now, this is giving me like a little bit of these miscommunication vibes that sometimes come through during retrograde periods, because I could see a little bit of this energy of masculine feeling or having some point of satisfaction, feeling like something is good, leaving something in a good space. But again, coming into that point of potentially inquiring towards feminine, like coming into that point of curiosity, building that energetic bridge, having that communication point. This is almost like a lot of the feminine energy in separation being like, the thing, like, it's like the feminine energy, it doesn't want to come into that point of like pointing out things that are difficult unless the masculine comes into that space of inquiring. You know what I mean? Like I'm seeing a little bit of that here. I'm also recognizing that there's, again, this is either... Yeah, this is some energy either, again, if these are energies that are doing plans of path work and long-term plans, there may be a lot of conversation that needs to occur in relationality to what the communication is in the time intervening. Or this is a lot of new energy that's building into new energetic connections right now. The thing is, the feminine's like a little bit more reticent right now. The feminine's like more in that state of space of being like a little bit like not wanting to like lead forward. Like it's like not so much that sense of like activation so much, but almost like that I want to say like that, taking, like being very conscientious along the way. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now. This is beautiful. This is productive. This is saying to me, I'm seeing a lot of these breakthroughs that are occurring right now in relationality to conflict. And either, again, this is the energy that's coming into the easement of conflict in relationality to experiencing something and feeling how easy it is to navigate a conflict. Maybe a lot of unpacking about past experiences wherein that wasn't the case. Or if this was energy that something reached a point of volatility that felt like it moved you out of alignment, being able to articulate upon those experiences as it relates to why something triggered you. This is a lot of that energy that's giving, again, articulating the reasons that are not excuses, because the reason is being articulated in order to facilitate what feels like healthy progress going forward. Masculine and feminine energy deep within the divine union frequency right now. A lot of this work is just recognizing and identifying like what feels like it's productive, and I'm seeing even here some of this work that we're seeing like deep within the divine union frequency right now. A lot of it is navigating those spaces and places wherein the feminine doubts themselves or doubts their own abilities in relationality to what it is that they're trying to create. Because we're seeing even here for a lot of this feminine energy coming into that modality of either, again, holding oneself to a standard outside of one's own self, or moving forward in such a way of recognizing and identifying like what those self-limiting beliefs are, those anxieties in relationality to how one is energetically perceived. A lot of the masculine energy is almost helping feminine through that right now, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. By helping the feminine recognize and say that to a certain extent, like we don't necessarily have control on that, right? We don't necessarily have control on that. What we have control on is what we know to be true within ourselves. So a lot of that energy is building into that state of, again, building confidence. A lot of this work that we're seeing right now, building confidence for the feminine deep within divine union. Masculine, it's more of that ability of, again, identifying and recognizing and trying to show the feminine and saying to the feminine, see yourself the way that I see you. Continuing to get clarification between our Nine of Cups in combination with our High Priestess in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Six of Cups in its upright. So what we love about this is there is this movement into productivity. There is this movement into energetic compassion. For a lot of the energy deep within the divine union frequency, this is that modality of the expression and extension of compassion in whatever way that you can facilitate it. Particularly and especially if these were experiences and scenarios wherein I feel like there's a lot of that feminine energy that's like going through that process of saying like, I really don't want to be misunderstood. I want to be able to like facilitate help in a bigger way. Like a lot of this feminine energy is like working through, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, trying to build, like trying to move forward in such a way that feels like it's energetically supportive. And a lot of the feminine energy right now, I want to say, is feeling very practical in relationality to what feels like it can heal versus what feels like it cannot. You know, like this is giving me a lot of that energetic equivalent of the feminine recognizing and identifying that if these were modalities or experiences wherein the feminine is doubting their own self. This could even be the feminine looking at experiences of like what others say about them, or what other people's opinions are. You know, this is almost the masculine energy that's helping the feminine in that modality, saying that's always going to be there. You can't navigate that in a way that like, you know, I'll put it this way. It's like one of these, it's like a little bit of this energetic equivalent that I'm seeing that like, you know, if you spend all of your energetic time trying to prove something wrong, like you're not necessarily moving with intentionality towards what it is you aspire and desire. That in itself can become a distraction point. So we see even now that for a lot of that feminine energy, building into that sense of conscientiousness, building into that sense of recognizing what feels like it's supportive, what feels like it's energetically stable. That's helping the feminine energy build optics into like what they're trying to move towards with intentionality versus like, again, kind of surrendering or abandoning the energetic outcome. Masculine energy, to a large degree, has learned this act of energetic compassion from the feminine that moves from that sense of, again, conscientiousness. This is a lot of the masculine energy that's recognized the conscientiousness wherein the feminine moves and how they move. And that same sense of conscientiousness, that same sense of consideration for others. This is a lot of that work that we see that the masculine is bringing forth in the same degree. The funny thing about it is that conscientiousness they're bringing forth towards the feminine to help them recognize again that compassion needs to be extended to the self as well. While for masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union, I feel like there's a lot of this pathwork of reconciliation that's happening here, especially if there was argumentation zones where, again, either seeing how easy an argumentation point can be, feeling that sense of facilitating and being able to build forth in a way that creates an expansion point, or those modalities of recognizing and identifying the hurdles within the self that may feel like they're preventing the ability to have a productive argument or having a productive conflict. This is the energy that even in the modality of articulating and amplifying that they're not necessarily perfect, they are perfect, because this is the energy that's being mindful And the perfection is the mindfulness, the observation of the self for the sake of trying to move in a better way. While for masculine and feminine energy right now in separation, this is a lot of energy in separation that is putting a lot of consideration into what feels like it's a healthy karmic connection as opposed to an unhealthy one. I just see even now that a lot of that energy in separation, which is really beautiful to see, is working right now on facilitating what feels like it is energetically balanced, what feels like it is something that comes into a state or space that feels like it's in alignment. And so that's why we see even now, if there's energy that's coming into healthy separation at this time, this is the energy that's coming into separation because of that consideration point in, again, observing and seeing one another and wanting to facilitate what feels best for the energetic counterpart. So even in that modality of having that sense of consideration, it immediately heals any karmic experience in the past wherein you may have felt like someone was taking something too energetically personally, to see the energetic pain that they were causing you, to see something that may have been like, these aren't energies that are like tearing each other apart inadvertently in the process. This is the energy that's like communicating effectively even in those moments of vulnerability. And again, for a lot of the feminine energy, by articulating upon a vulnerability, building into the expression of the healthy communication, this is what is laying the groundwork for the feminine to identify or recognize what feels like it is the beginning of an energetically positive connection. Specifically and simply because this is the energy that's like learning to, like, again, not project out what they're feeling, but articulate upon what they are feeling. While continuing to get clarification between our High Priestess in its reversal in combination with our Three of Wands in its upright. One card to clarify here. We've got here our Knight of Swords in its reversal. There's a lot of this energy I'm seeing right now in separation coming through via the way of apology. I'm just seeing this here. Like there's a lot of communication. I'm seeing that there's a lot of communication in separation that's occurring right now in relationality to, and this is some of that conflict energy that we saw that was within the divine union that's now coming into the separation point. Because, and this is why I would say even now, if you're in separation, don't assume, articulate upon how you are feeling. Articulate upon what you are feeling. Because I see even now that for some of this energy that is in separation, this is a lot of the energy that is working through some of that path work in separation. And this is a lot of the articulation upon anxieties, doubts, fears. Masculine, and this is where I find this is actually productive. These are the energies that are matching one another in separation, because this is masculine also articulating upon the anxieties, the doubts, the fears. But the important thing about this isn't the energy that is acting upon those. This is the energy that is articulating through those. So what happens in the modality where we articulate upon a fear, an anxiety, as opposed to reacting towards it? It allows for a breakthrough in relationality to communication. So I see even now that there could be a lot of energy in separation right now that is like building either new energetic connections that are both approaching each other in very trepidatious ways, or this is the energy that is in separation, building into those plans, laying that groundwork, but also expressing openly their anxieties and concerns in the process. And even potentially here, this is the energy that's articulating forward in that way, because that's the energy that says, there's no difficulty that can't be brought up because it allows for a healthy ground for a solution. So we see even now that for the energy coming into divine union, that's more of that productivity space. And this could be more of that realm of, again, apology if there was something here where there was too much of that overreactivity point. Because we see even now that for a lot of that energy that's coming into divine union, those are either those modalities wherein there was that sense of a healthy, like immediate healthy resolution to a conflict, that problem that immediately allows for an expansion point, or This is the energy that is working through those experiences and observing and recognizing the changes within the self, mutual accountability that allows for productivity going forward. Masculine and feminine energy deep within the divine union frequency right now. Some of the hurdles that are happening for masculine, coming into that state or space of opening one's own center of compassion. What happens when you open that compassion center? Why would the masculine energy close up so much of that compassion center there? Because that's where a lot of fear hides. That's where a lot of fear hides. When you feel, you fear, right? There's like, it's like, I'm going to close the box. You know what I mean? So it's like some of the energy of the masculine is unpacking the fact that the solution to feeling anxiety and fear was like, I just made the decision that I just wouldn't feel anything. There we go. But that doesn't work. So here, this is a lot of the energy of the masculine that is allowing themselves to feel the expression and the expansion point of those anxieties and fears, right? But a lot of it is actually, and this is what's really beautiful, this is masculine looking towards feminine, and this is why feminine's own anxieties and fears almost create a point of comfort towards the masculine, because this is the masculine that looks towards the feminine, that has their full expression of their heart open. They do it even though they feel those anxieties, even though they feel those doubts and fears, right? And this is almost the masculine looking to feminine, being like, hey, you're the one that taught me to feel like this. You're doubting yourself, but again, the beauty I see in you is the fact that you allow yourself to feel the full expansion of your emotionality, but you proceed forward and you do it anyway. You're not doing it with like a sense of shutting down your emotional center. You're not just shutting it down and moving forward. You're someone that allows yourself that expansion point of feeling all of the steps along the way. And one's own and masculine almost looking to feminine and saying, that is a gift. Like that is the gift to who you are, the fact that you can do that while still experiencing all of that emotionality and all of that sensitivity. And this is the masculine that, again, is almost taking a page from the feminine's book and saying, I'm trying to do that too. It's really hard. But this is the masculine that's supporting the feminine, because saying you go through all of that and the only thing you do is you create that sense of a lack of confidence in yourself. And this is the masculine saying, you're incredible because you have that ability. You're incredible because you feel everything and you do it anyway. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Three of Wands and its upright in combination with our Queen of Pentacles and its upright. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with the Eight of Pentacles in its reversal. Guys, it's a retrograde. It's the retrograde. It's the retrograde. Yeah, I know. It feels like nothing's happening, right? It feels like nothing's going the way that you want it to go. It feels like everything's going a lot slower than you expect. Feeling like you're having a lot of energetic hurdles that are coming. It's the retrograde. It's like, do not internalize an external problem. Because we see even now, and this is the energy that we're seeing that is occurring right now for the energy within the divine union frequency, this is the energy that's basically saying to one another, do not internalize an external problem. Because here we see that this is the energy that, again, what happens in those modalities where you feel those blockages, you feel those hurdles come up. Are you going to let them overpower you? You're going to let them like get you down in the dumps? You're going to stay down there? Or are you going to let it help you innovate? You're going to let it kind of come through with new points of productivity. What happens? Listen, the retrograde says, you know what's nice about problems? Solutions. You know what's fun about problems? Breakthroughs. You know what's fun about getting out of your groove? Whole new groove. How got to get you out of your rut to help you find a new tune. A lot of that energy of the retrograde. This is the energy that says don't let yourself get down in the dumps because the retrograde is making something harder. Let that moment, I'm going to say this again. I'm going to keep saying this during this retrograde. The only difference between a breakdown and a breakthrough is how you navigate it. So we see even now that this is a lot of the energy within the divine union that's giving each other those pep talks along the way, saying don't let that be a breakdown, let that be a breakthrough, right? While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is the energy that is taking that breakdown. If there was a breakdown point, if there was a conflict, you're not going to let it be a breakdown. You're going to let it be a breakthrough. So we see even now, like, this is the energy that is not just they're not just sweeping it off the table. They're not just saying, let's just pretend that never happened. This is the energy that goes, absolutely not. We're very grateful. Look, I'm really glad we had that conflict, because look, if we didn't have that conflict, we wouldn't have this new plan in terms of how we're going to communicate going forward. If we didn't have that conflict, if you didn't tell me why you took that so personally, because something that happened to you 10 years ago and I didn't realize I triggered you, thank you for telling me that. I'll keep that in mind going forward. I will be more energetically careful next time. This is the energy that is taking that conflict zone, and they're not building walls with them. They're building bridges. So even here we see that is a little bit of that gift of the retrograde that occurs in those misfires in relationality to how one person perceives something versus another that can allow for an expansion point. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is in separation, a lot of this energy in separation is just navigating the practicals. Everybody's so practical right now. So practical right now in separation, particularly the feminine. And this is the only actually, I have to say, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to dial that back. The hurdle right now between masculine and feminine right now in separation is masculine saying anything is possible. And feminine's going, but I'm being practical. Masculine's going, anything is we can come up with a plan for anything. There's no problem without a solution. Feminine's going, that's not true. But feminine's going, that may be true, but it's not real until it's real. It's not real till it's real. So this is the energy of masculine being more in that daydreaming space, right? But feminine energy is like bringing a little bit of that like wet blanket on it to a certain extent and saying, yes, that's very romantic, but is it real? It's a very nice gesture, but is it true? Right? Like this is the energy that's like, again, this is like, and this is why these energies may feel like there's a little bit of conflict right now. Because for masculine, it may feel like in separation right now. Feminine's like trying to bring like a lead balloon into their possibilities. But feminine's also saying like, feminine is healing and recovering from spaces where they felt like someone gave them that energetic dream and then like threw their heart out the window. So this is feminine going like, no. I'm being very energetically careful. I'm being very practical. I want to see the tangibility of something. I don't want to hear the promise of that tangibility. I need to see that is something that is real, not as just something that is being articulated upon. So even here, this could be a little bit of that, that could be a little bit of that difficulty point right now. Because again, that could create a little bit of that sense of like masculine being like looking at feminine being like, you're so not romantic, and feminine being like, I don't have the bandwidth to be romantic. Feminine's like, what's romantic? Something that's tangible. Something that's tangible is nice and romantic. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Two of Wands in its upright and our combination of our Six of Cups. I love seeing these cards here because this is productive conversation, okay? One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now. We love to see this. We've got here our Ace of Cups. Masculine and feminine energy right now in separation. The thing about this right now, I gotta say, there's a little bit of a disparity that's happening right now between masculine and feminine in separation. And again, I'm seeing here, this is in the modality of the possible to the present. Like this is a little bit of that energy that we're seeing right now between the plan, the energetic plan moving forward versus the energy of the feminine that's very grounded in the present. So we can see now that there could be that modality here. It's like the energy that requires the convincing of one another, right? So if this is masculine trying to come towards feminine, this is the masculine saying, I recognize that pipe dream is only a pipe dream until I put it into practice. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to show you that that isn't just something that I'm speaking towards, something that I activate upon. And for the feminine experiencing that, that's the energy of the feminine experiencing, again, the release and relief of seeing the masculine that's able to like tangibly make those energetic changes that allow for something to come into a state of easement, potentially allowing something to start to move into divine union in the present. Or this is a lot of that energy right now that is moving forward into new energetic healthy connections with a mindfulness of the experience of the past, recognizing and identifying that there may have been something here where like it wasn't the fact that the energy wasn't in a modality that they didn't have that sense of care for one another, but it was just the fact that there's something about those plans that was too difficult to navigate on the day-to-day. But even in that modality or expansive experience, it immediately allows for a bit of that sense of like, this is energy that's healed. Like this is energy that healed in some of those experiences, because seeing that vitality, having that ability of navigating forward in such a way and being mindful of what's best for one another in the process immediately allowed for a state or space of energetic healing to occur. Continuing to get clarification between our Six of Cups in combination with our Knight of Swords in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Tower in its reversal. Now for masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union and the energy deep within divine union, this is the beauty and possibility of what can occur at the end of a conflict. Because if this is energy that either went through healthy conflict and immediately had an expansion point, this is the release and relief of experiencing that and feeling that. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep within the divine union, this is the energy that supports one another along the way, even when things are difficult. Right? This is the energy that's almost saying to one another, you know, what we build between ourselves, this is how we're going to continue forward, because this is the energy that, again, acts as clear mirrors to one another, that amplifies and gives each other that reinforcement, even when things are energetically difficult. Because what does the energy deep within the divine union say to one another? Recognize that now is just a moment. Recognize the difference between a momentary hurdle and a long-term circumstance or situation. This is the energy within the divine union that has perspective, that doesn't assume that that modality of something being difficult is going to persevere, because this is the energy that almost reaffirms to itself that the one thing that is energetically constant is change. And we see even here that this is the gift that a lot of the masculine energy has received from feminine within the divine union. Bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what do you feel most aligned to? Because this is a masculine that sees the feminine, that experiences those modalities of difficulty, but perseveres throughout them, keeps their intentionality, keeps their focus, doesn't allow themselves to feel the overwhelm of the breakdown, continues to continue forward even through circumstances that feel like they're less than ideal. And this is the masculine that says to the feminine, I do that too. You're not energetically alone in doing that. And so we see even now, like there's a lot of that work that within the divine union that's like allowing, even if there are modalities here that create anything that feels like a bit of that energetic blockage during this retrograde period, this is the energy that's not taking it personally. They're not feeling like it's happening towards them. They feel like it's happening around them. And they're having that empathy of saying, if I'm feeling this, I know that everyone else is feeling it too. And what happens in that modality where you don't take something personally and you look around and you say, other people are feeling it too, then you don't say, someone demands something of me that they need to give. You go, how can I help? What can I give forward? What can I give forth to ease that? So we see even now that for a lot of the energy navigating in that space, that is that modality that when you feel that overwhelm, you don't get overwhelmed, you get productive. You work even harder, because you're trying to see over the energetic obstacle. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now, this is the energy that is able to see over the energetic obstacle of the conflict. So if there was anything that felt like there was a conflict here, this is the conflict resolution, because this is the energy that's like keeping their perception or perspective on the long term, right? And so even here, if this is a modality of seeing how easy that they navigated through it, this is the energy that feels the release and relief of that. And masculine coming into a state of appreciation of themselves in terms of not becoming reactive, but allowing themselves to be vulnerable to feminine in terms of articulating how they feel. Feminine, having that modality of keeping an open mind and allowing that sense of being able to hear and experience what the masculine is articulating, that allows for that abundance point and being able to come into that point of rectification. While for masculine and feminine energy right now that is in separation, a lot of this energy in separation right now is coming through the modality or the perspective of what feels like it is energetically healthy. We're just seeing this here. There's a lot of this energy right now that feels like it's energetically healthy. And what we appreciate for a lot of this energy in separation, if this is energy that was trying to facilitate an energetic connection, but it was feeling like it was too difficult, it was too volatile, it was creating too much of that disparity, this is the energy that immediately came into that space or place of, again, compassionate release, coming into that point of saying, I think more about the care giving towards than what it is that you're building forth with someone. And in that experience, we're either seeing that there's energy right now that's moving forward on their journey from a place of deep healing, or we are seeing here that these are modalities and experiences of energy of masculine. And this is a little bit of the hard problem space that we're seeing for some of the energy and separation right now. Because I just keep seeing masculine potentially trying to come towards feminine with some kind of energetic solution. And the feminine almost saying to masculine, I don't want you to make those changes on account of me. And masculine being like, I'm not making them on account of you. I'm doing it because it is something that would bring me energetic joy. So again, a little bit of this energy of feminine here in separation that is trying to come into that space or place of receiving in a way that may feel like it's somewhat energetically overwhelming, right? Because this is a lot of the feminine that's like, like feeling that anxiety point, again, recognizing the masculine coming towards them from a space of authenticity requires a different level or degree of energetic healing, right? Especially if you were in those modalities where, again, you were moving into connections with masculine that felt like it was always keeping you at a distance. You may be discovering that deepening sense of vulnerability that occurs in those experiences, because suddenly it's like masculine coming towards you authentically, and now you're like, is there feminine now in separation going slow down because it's like that sense of the masculine coming towards you in that way. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Knight of Swords in its reversal in combination with our Eight of Pentacles in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Five of Wands in its upright. Masculine and feminine energy right now. In separation. Like this is what I mean even here. I gotta say, there's a little bit of this energetic unpacking that we have to navigate right now for some of this feminine energy, because I'm seeing here that there's some modality of feminine right now that having the masculine coming towards you with authenticity, having the masculine that's able to like kind of make those energetic changes. If there's a little bit of the feminine right now that's like pushing back on that to a certain degree, this is some of the feminine energy that's coming into a deeper state of healing, specifically because there's a recognition point that when you're in connection with energy that doesn't feel like it wants to move in alignment with you, well, that provides a certain level or degree of energetic safety, huh? It makes you feel like you have a little bit of that like cocoon around yourself, because it doesn't require you to come into your own sense of vulnerability. So we see even now that there could be a little bit of this feminine energy in separation that's navigating through some of those experiences of recognizing that sense of like, trying to drive forth towards an energetic connection that's invariably trying to keep you at a distance. It allows for a little bit of energetic security, right? It may have been those feelings of experiences of saying that like that assumption point, feeling that vibration of distance and trying to clear it, like that almost created a little bit of like that zone of protection around you, because you knew that the masculine wasn't coming towards you. So we see even now that a lot of that feminine energy may be There may be some feminine energy right now that is navigating the oppositional problem in terms of trying to come towards masculine from a point that it feels like there's always an energetic obstacle. There could be some feminine energy right now that's navigating that modality of something that feels like it's so easy, or it feels a little too good to be true, because this is a feminine that's working through their own experiences of vulnerability to a certain extent in some of those modalities, right? And it may be feeling like it's creating a little bit of internal conflict space. While for masculine energy right now, this could be masculine energy navigating spaces and places like that. Because again, if this is the masculine that's kind of trying to come towards feminine with a lot of that energetic authenticity, and they're feeling a little bit of that pushback from the feminine, this could be the masculine saying, what are you afraid of? Tell me what you're afraid of. Explain it to me. Unpack it for me. Because we see even here, like that's either the masculine that again is recognizing that that's the feminine energy coming into that modality of trying to heal from energetic trauma, right? But also again, in that modality of experience of patience, we see here that a lot of that masculine energy is like, I understand it. I understand why. Because this is almost the masculine energy that says and sees and says that this is the masculine that recognizes and says to the feminine, I see the fact that you're used to that energy of the masculine that was too afraid to build an energetic connection and has had to create that space or place of trying to protect oneself to a certain extent. So we see even now like a lot of that energy navigating that space. There could be a lot of heavy conversation that is occurring right now in separation, in relationality to past traumas, in relationality to past wounds. This is happening across all the frequencies. I'm telling you, it's a retrograde. Some of this energy here, the return, the energetic return that we're seeing to a certain extent. When we say energetic return, it doesn't necessarily mean someone has to come back. It could be the energetic return in having to articulate and express something that occurred in the past in a way that someone could understand it. So we see even now there could be a lot of that energy that's articulating about those things at a moment of building into an energetic connection, because it's helping recognize the anxiety or the uncertainty or the trepidation that the energy is feeling as they proceed along the way. Masculine and feminine energy right now coming into divine union. This is the energy that's finding productive new ways of recognizing and identifying conflict. Because if this is energy that used to avoid conflict, this is now the energy that may be identifying and recognizing the value, the ability of finding something valuable and important within a conflict, but in a healthy way, that is re-articulating any of those experiences in the past where it felt like you weren't necessarily in a point of conflict. It felt like more like that energy that was trying to pull you off path because you could never see the same way because you wanted different things. So even here, a lot of that may be restorative, but it almost may be a little triggering, because it's either requiring you to articulate upon the experiences in the past that may have created some of that volatility within you, or this is the easement point and healing in what you're receiving in the present that's giving context to the past points of conflict. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, deep within the divine union frequency, this is the energy that reaffirms to themselves, says when things get hard, we get harder. When things get difficult, we push even harder. This is the energy that almost like amplifies and says when things are difficult, like the only difference between a breakdown and a breakthrough is how hard you push through it. So we see even now that for a lot of that energy navigating in that space, this is the energy within divine union, giving each other that pep talk, like not letting oneself get frustrated by the hurdles, but letting oneself get energized, letting oneself get like empowered, getting a little bit of that like oomph to help kind of push through to a certain extent. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Ace of Cups in its upright and our Tower in its reversal. Two cards we love to see in combination. One card, please, to clarify. Clarification coming through right now with our Five of Pentacles in its reversal. Can we just glue these cards together? Can we just keep these together? Can we just glue these cards together? I love these cards together. This is beautiful. Because what we're effectively seeing here, a lot of this work that we're seeing that's occurring for energy across all of the frequencies is it's restorative. It's recognizing and identifying one's own abandonment wounds, but not reacting to them. Can't get rid of the abandonment wounds. They're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. What we do though, again, we recognize them within, we observe them. And in the modality of observing them, we don't react towards them. That allows, like that in itself, that's a lot of the energy that's like deep within the divine union frequency that recognizes and identifying that healing is a work in progress. It's always there. There's always going to be something else that needs to be healed from to a certain extent. So we see even now that for a lot of that energy deep within the divine union, having those modalities, feeling like, again, going through some of that journey, feeling a little bit of those moments where like the ego like pops up and goes like, you know, like the ego goes, it hurt me. The ego's like, it hurt me. And the self having to say, dude, your whole job is to get hurt. Like that's what you're for. You're not supposed to protect the ego. The ego is supposed to protect you. That's the message of this retrograde. Remember, you are not supposed to protect your ego. The ego is supposed to protect you. So recognizing and identifying this is the energy that basically says, I'm not going to take something personally, because taking something personally means I'm trying to protect my ego in the process. So we see even now, like a lot of that energy is like navigating through in such a way that like, it's like the ego behind the ego. This is the energy being like, oh, it's fine. Like water off a duck's back. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. Because this is the energy that like is focused on the work, not on the self. They're focused on the path work. They're focused on the intentionality. They're focused on the energetic journey of the self. And when we come into that space of doing so, we don't take things personally, because it's not about us. It's about the bigger picture. It's about the world. Like it's about the bigger things, you know? And that sense of energetic compassion, like that is like what effectively drives us, you know? While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is a lot of the energy that may be saying, like I have to say, there's a little bit more, there's some energy right now coming into divine union that's almost trying to say to someone, I want you to understand what you just saw was something I needed to have because it was protecting me up until this point. Like there's a lot of energy right now that's coming into that space of recognizing that they're in the safe space of an energetic connection. And sometimes we have to be extremely mindful when we come into healthy energetic connections, that if we learned something, if we had something that we needed, that we created to protect ourselves in a state or space that required it, that ability to let that go, to acknowledge that, to recognize it, to understand it and say, I can put this down now. In the observation of recognizing it within the self, the moment that you recognize that tendency, is the moment that you say, it's not glued to my hand. It's something that I can release because it's something that I can see that I am holding, that I do not need to hold. So we see even now that for a lot of that energy, navigating that space, something about being able to unpack, not only, again, going through a productive conflict, but also articulating the reactivity that may have occurred that felt like it moved you off your path. That in itself feels restorative because it's the mindfulness that feels like the energetic security. It's not the energy that says as an excuse, this is just how I am, get used to it. This is the energy that says, I recognize it too, and I hope to be rid of it. I hope to be rid of it. That's the difference between an excuse and a reason. The excuse will say, this is just how I am, you got to get used to it, versus the energy that says, this is how I am, I hope to be rid of it. Help me heal it. Masculine and feminine energy in separation. A lot of this energy in separation right now, we're recognizing and identifying is going through a lot of healing. Even in healing right now, I am seeing that there's a lot of healing that is occurring right now in separation. But a lot of it is, again, there's a lot of energy right now that is experiencing either a closure point in an energetic connection, but not taking it energetically personally, recognizing the circumstances as such that are helping that ability of being able to move forward with a sense of easement, right? That satisfaction point, not experiencing the abandonment wound at a time of closure, simply because this is energy that is articulating about the circumstances at play that are requiring that need to be able to move forward effectively. Or this is the energy that's coming into problem and solution, This is the energy that's feeling that modality of something that is being healed, something that is being restored, that's allowing for the possibility of something moving into divine union. Continuing to get clarification on these cards between our Tower card in its reversal and our Five of Wands in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Page of Pentacles in its reversal. The difficulty I keep seeing right now, the difficulty I keep seeing right now in separation potentially has to do with what is being energetically offered. And I'm saying even now, I'm seeing a little bit of this work that's requiring, I'm going to see even now, feminine coming into that modality of healing something here that you may not necessarily have recognized that you needed to heal. If these are circumstances or situations wherein, again, this is masculine trying to come towards feminine, and feminine's like holding back to a certain extent or feeling a lot of that trepidatiousness or cautiousness, and masculine looking to feminine saying, it why is that? And because this is the feminine, I was going, I'm used to masculine. I'm not used to masculine moving in this way. I'm not used to masculine. I'm not used to masculine bringing forth that intentionality. So this is a lot of the feminine energy that may be unpacking and healing some trauma right now in separation, in the modality of masculine trying to affect change for the part of the feminine, because this is the feminine that's like, I'm not used to like, this is the feminine that's almost saying that the trauma, sometimes 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 not receiving something feels more, that's where we see a lot of this high priestess in its reversal, because this is the feminine energy coming into that state or space of identifying and recognizing that sense of like, when we move towards someone who keeps the expectations low, it also keeps the expectations low within our own self, right? So for a lot of that energy of feminine, recognizing that this could be a lot of feminine that's healing within that, in that modality of building into that sense of appreciation, but almost coming into that state or space of being able to receive from the masculine in a way that allows for that sense of restoration, allows for that sense of enjoyment, allows for that sense of appreciation of the self. Because we see even now a lot of that work of the feminine is coming into some of these, like some of this deeper healing and relationality to what it is that you desire versus what it is that you've experienced or accepted in the past. While for masculine energy and separation right now, a lot of this work may be based or built upon these circumstances or situations. If you're trying to build forth the feminine at this time, if you're recognizing and identifying some of that trepidation on the part of the feminine, it may feel very much like you're in that modality of saying to the feminine, I understand your caution. I understand your anxieties. I understand your fears. I'm not bringing these forward because like I'm saying that you must move forward in this way. They're almost saying to the feminine, saying how, like, your ability to receive that, like it's a trust process. And I can almost see a lot of the masculine going towards feminine saying, you know, I need you to be able to trust me in the fact that what I'm trying to bring towards you is something that is authentic. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, a lot of this energy coming into divine union right now, this is the healing from experiences in the past where it may have felt like the conflicts were unnecessary. If these were modalities or experiences that felt like you were always lacking in those experiences of receiving conflict and not feeling that productivity, this is either the energy that's almost arguing about, like not arguing, but almost articulating those experiences by giving that explanation or giving those reasons as to why someone may have been more reactive. But that ability of doing so is what is allowing an expansion point in relationality to what one is changing going forward via that sense of productivity. While for some of this energy right now, this is a lot of unpacking of the trauma or unpacking of the past. If there was something in the past that was more volatile, that recognition point of something not ever coming back into that point of volatility, this is like a lot of that energy that's like working through that pathwork of feeling like some of that trauma is behind them. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is deep within the divine union frequency, this is the energy that is recognizing that if you feel like everything that you're doing is not enough, then you're probably on the right pathwork. Because that ability of recognizing that perfection is always something that feels like it is intangible. It's always going to be a little bit further ahead of you. This is the energy that's like, working through that modality of looking towards one another and saying, I feel like that too. It doesn't mean that it's true. You can feel like that, but recognize that that feeling is not true, that the actions speak louder than the words, and also that limiting self-talk, or that feeling of saying that what you're doing doesn't feel like it's enough. Remember that it's always enough, and remember it's always never going to feel like it's enough, because that's characteristic of that stance or that space of what we try to bring compassion and productivity towards. Final card for today's spread, between our Five of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our Page of Pentacles in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now. I love to see this card. We had this card yesterday. We've got here our Lovers, and we've got that at the conclusion of our spread. So masculine and feminine energy right now, deep within the divine union frequency. A lot of this stuff that we're seeing that's occurring right now, this is the energy that is working through healing those abandonment wounds by looking towards one another and saying, you are perfect. And this is not the energy that says to one another, you're perfect because you're perfect. This is the energy that says, even in your imperfection, you are perfect. Because a lot of this energy that we're seeing that is navigating within the divine union frequency is the articulation point of looking towards the counterpart and saying the fact that is the energetic equivalent of the mindfulness of looking towards someone and saying, I recognize that even in those moments that you doubt yourself, you're perfect. Because again, you don't react from that space. You don't become reactive. You don't become volatile. You observe your own tendencies. You do that work of, again, not only trying to be your best self, but trying to protect others from your worst version of self. And so in that modality, like, that is how we heal. It's not that we move those parts of ourselves out of ourselves. It's that we recognize and identify to a certain extent that sense or that space of identifying and seeing. That sense of mindfulness. And even in those modalities, it's like a lot of that is like coming through in that state or space of recognizing and identifying like what that is to a certain extent that allows for that ability of healing. It's not that abandonment wound goes away. It's that you recognize and identify it, and you don't empower it. You don't empower that energy. You don't empower that direction. You stay very grounded throughout it. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is the energy. I want to say even now, if there were triggers here, if there were abandonment wounds, right? This is either the energy that is coming into that moment of accountability, looking towards something and saying, I recognize that what I brought forth into a situation was not feeling like it was ideal. But this is almost the energy that articulates upon the experiences in the past, almost saying, in those experiences, this was necessary. And I recognize that is something that I'm changing, working to change from within. So we see even now, like, that's the energy that's working towards perfection of the self via V connection to the energetic counterpart, via V that sense of accountability, having that moment of, again, looking towards them and saying, I recognize that I want to do better. But that's the energy that says, I want to do better, because that is the energy that says, this is a safe space. I recognize that what I'm bringing forth here is not necessarily valuable, because it's something that it doesn't require energetic protection. While for some of the energy right now, if these were modalities where you went through a conflict point and it was like smooth sailing, it was immediately like possible. This is the energy that's feeling that easement point and feeling the satisfaction of, again, doing the work on the self, but also recognizing that being in alignment with an energetic counterpart that helps facilitate that journey, like, that's the expansion point. While for masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, a lot of this energy in separation, this is a lot of energy in separation that is not necessarily focusing so much on what they energetically feel for the potential counterpart, but looking at the qualities and characteristics of the relationship, or of that they ideally desire, right? So we see right now, like a lot of that work that's happening, there's a lot of this energy and separation that's being very energetically mindful in relationality to the shape of those relationships, what they will feel like, what they will look like. And this isn't the energy that's like moving forward into an energetic connection and going, I hope that happens one day. This is the energy that says, let's discuss it. Let's talk about it. Let's identify what that relationship looks like, because this is the energy that recognizes and identifies that if someone isn't keen to talk about the nature of a relationship, then it probably indicates the fact that they're not seeking one. I'm going to say it again for the people in the back, that if an energy is in the modality where they're not keen about talking about the nature of a relationship, it's probably indicative of the fact that they are not seeking one. And so we see even now that's allowing for a lot of breakthrough points, even in those new energetic connections, because either these are energetic connections that are working towards that right now, trying to come into a space of healing to allow something like that to be possible, or this is energy that's moving forward right now into new energetic connections, utilizing the pathwork of discernment to recognize whether someone's willing to talk about the shape and nature of a relationship, to identify what that relationship will be, instead of coming into the expectation of the assumption that you desire the same thing without discussing it. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now is our Six of Pentacles in its reversal. Masculine, and across all of the frequencies right now, I gotta tell guys, I'm just gonna tell you right now, nobody's got any spoons. Everybody's out of spoons right now. You know what I mean? So we see it even now. There's a lot of this experience that's occurring right now. Again, these retrogrades, they sometimes require everything to take more work. So everyone is in that modality right now. Don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. Don't think that you're the only person that's going through the retrograde. Things aren't happening to you. They're happening around you. And so the more that you're able to recognize that, the more that you're able to navigate with a sense of empathy and recognizing that everybody is doing everything they can. Imagine everybody is doing the best they can at every moment. Okay? And when you imagine that everyone is doing the best they can at every moment, it's going to help you a lot from feeling that sense of taking something like personally. Allowing that sense of compassion. Don't let it trigger you. Don't let it, if someone needs to pull back their energy right now, it's not about you. It's not about you. Like, let that be that moment of recognizing and building into that space of compassion. Because we're seeing even now, these retrograde periods, what do we talk about? They require more work. They require more energy to do something that may not necessarily always require that much energy. So if you're seeing that right now, that ability of being mindful that other people are also going through the retrograde, that's what's going to allow for that sense of, again, looking towards something and not taking something personally, but asking oneself, what can you do to try to facilitate something becoming easier, right? Because the retrograde is not here to create problems. The retrograde here is here to seek out points of productivity, new solutions. Sometimes you got to shake the snow globe a little, you know? So just be a little mindful as you navigate that. Masculine and feminine in separation. This has to do, this is what I mean about the practicality. There could be a lot of energy right now that may be feeling a lot of deep connection to someone, but almost saying, what I feel for you isn't energetically practical. Right? It's like a lot of that we may be seeing. So a lot of that energy is not putting the cart before the horse in that way. That's why we see so much of the feminine holding their heart space at a bit of a distance. While we see even now that for masculine and feminine coming into divine union, this is a lot of the energy that may be explaining and saying, I'm sorry, I was in modalities in the past where that being when you're in a space of compassion, but there's trauma, it doesn't allow you that point of vulnerability because it literally isn't a safe space. So we see even now that for a lot of that energy, recognizing and identifying and articulating those spaces and places in the past where something that you brought forth in an argument may have felt like it was necessary, but it isn't now. This is how the energy is healing via the accountability. For masculine and feminine deep within the divine union right now, this is a lot of the energy that's reaffirming their own energetic commitment that when you move forward with intentionality, you surrender that energetic outcome. That's hard. It's hard path work. but it's vital and it's necessary, right? Because when you're doing something valuable and important, you don't do it because of what's going to come back to you. You do it because you know it is. That is our daily collective read for the day. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber name at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, ever, ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website, so I encourage you to do it there. Also, I want to give you guys a couple of updates before we move into personal readings right now. First and foremost, if you are interested in learning about the tarot, we are continuing our tarot class series tonight. Please join me at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern for an exploration in the fourth card in the tarot, the Emperor card. All you need to do if you'd like to become a part of that live class program is head over to my Substack, graystrega.substack.com. Your paid subscription to my Substack will grant you access and entry into our live class. You will also have access to any of the previous recordings and course materials for our previous classes. So if you missed anything, you've got ample opportunity to catch up. You'll also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students to ask any questions that you may have in any relation to anything that we're learning. And if you become a founding member to my Substack, not only will you receive a discount on the full year's worth of classes, but you will also receive a one-on-one mentorship class with me, wherein we will assess where you are in your own personal tarot journey, and I'll give you the best insights in terms of how to utilize those classes most effectively going forward. One of the things I tried to do in these classes was make them accessible to the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's definitely something there for everyone. So thank you if you're already joining us there, and I look forward to potentially seeing you tonight at our class. Also, even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my Substack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay up to date on any new giveaways, new offers, new experiences, new courses. I post my weekly newsletter there that gives you an update on my live schedule each week. Speaking of giveaways, we have announced the winner to our July giveaway. Congratulations. We are now in the process of our August giveaway. If you would like to potentially win a free private tarot reading with me, head over to the link tree in my bio. There's a 2-minute travel survey there. Filling out that travel survey will grant you access and entry into the giveaway. But if you would like to increase your chances of winning, go ahead and forward that survey to a friend, because when I pull the winner, I will be giving away a tarot reading not only to the person who wins, but also to whoever referred them. So thank you if you've already entered, and I wish you the best of luck in winning this month. Finally, I want to let you guys know about a few new offerings I'm now offering on top of my standard life path readings. I now offer mentorship classes. These can be purchased on an individual level or as a class series, 4 45-minute classes, 1 per week over the span of a month. Or if you would, and I also, for those classes specifically, they can be oriented around whatever subject you are most interested in pursuing. I take a very limited amount of students for that reason. Also, for my clients that are seeking more consistent tarot support, I'm happy to offer weekly tarot insight packages. That is a discounted rate on a package of 4 30-minute readings so that you can stay more consistent in following your personal journey work. Also, I want to let you know that we are currently accepting applications for new moderators. If you have been interested in becoming a moderator for me and getting those perks that come with it, go ahead and email me at graystrega@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to forward you that information. I hope you guys have an absolutely beautiful day. Please take care of yourselves. Please take care of each other, and we will do this again tomorrow.